Project Gemini started in 1961 and ended in 1966. This was NASA's second human spacelift program. Gemini was conducted between Projects Mercury and Apollo. Gemini spacecraft carried a 2-astronaut crew. Project Gemini put U.S. in the lead for the Cold War space race with Soviet Union. Edward White was the first American to spacewalk during Gemini 4. Gemini 5 showed the necessary endurance for Apollo lunar missions.
Gemini 6A accomplished the first space rendezvous, and Gemini 7 set a 14-day endurance record. Gemini 11 manned Earth's orbital altitude. The main mission for Gemini was to test the equipment and crews for long-term space flights.
Buzz Aldrin was the first to prove the useful work could be done outside the spacecraft without life-threatening exhaustion. The cost for Project Gemini was $1.2834 billion. Project Gemini was the first program to use Houston as their mission control. This project was named after the constellation Gemini, in Latin meaning twins. NASA used this name because the capsule could only carry 2 people. There was a total of 20 astronauts and 20 uncrewed orbitals. The main mission for Gemini was to test the equipment and crews for long-term space flights.
Gemini's secondary missions were docking orbiting vehicles, vehicle navigation, mastering atmospheric entry, landing in pre-selected sites, and extravehicular activity. These goals were achieved on June 7, 1965.
The crews contained a command pilot and a pilot. The spacecraft was designed by Jim Chamberlain, a Canadian aerospace engineer. The astronauts of Project Gemini consisted of Gus Grimson, Neil Armstrong, Gordon Cooper, Edward Higgins White, Buzz Aldrin, Jim Lauriel, Wally Schirra, Michael Collins, John White, Elliot C., Thomas P. Stratford, Frank Bowman, Eugene Cernan, Richard F. Gordon Jr., Pete Conrad, and James McDivitt. The spacecraft was launched by a rocket liquid fuel known as Titan II. The purpose of Project Gemini was to test the effects of space travel on the human body. The objective was to develop space travel techniques to support Apollo's mission to land astronauts on the moon. Gemini achieved missions long enough for a trip to the moon and back. Gemini perfected working outside the spacecraft with extravehicular activity. Gemini pioneered the orbital maneuvers necessary to achieve space docking and rendezvous. With these new techniques proven in Gemini, Apollo could prove its prime mission without doing these fundamental exploratory operations. All Gemini flights were launched from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station Launch Complex 19 in Florida.